So if you want to open up that HTML file in Dreamweaver, I'll just quickly talk you through what changes I made. It's not a lot. I really just kind of used the functionality we had already built and added to it. So you can see here, you guys are going to have 8 different typefaces that you're going to need to document. Is that right? Like 8 different styles or classifications. So that's basically what I did, and I gave each div a name. So if you scroll down to the body section, you can see typeface 1, typeface 2, and so on and so forth until you get to 8. Okay? Each one of those is in a div. And if I scroll back up into my head section where the script tag is, you can see I'll re-explain exactly what these are doing. So what this is saying is when the document is ready, we're going to run this function. Okay? And the function is whenever you hover over anything that has the ID of typeface 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, that's the same, it's basically a copy paste, we're going to run this tooltipster function. Okay? Well, what does the tooltipster function do? It will add this content, which is inside of this, this is called an event handler, and actually paste this HTML code in the right spot. Okay, so this is just it's a picture of a zebra, and I didn't even change the text. So if you preview that in your browser, it looks like this. Okay, so those are the eight divs. Okay, each with number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And when you roll over them, the tooltipster function fires, and it adds that content and styles it in the way that your CSS is written. Okay. So how do I imagine this working on your maps, I guess? How do you relate one to the other? Say, for instance, that light gray box is your background image, which is your map. I would suggest using absolute positioning to place your markers on your map in the right spot. Okay. So let's pretend that this div, which is div 8, this cyan colored one, is a location on your map, so that when somebody pops up over it, your image and your text show up. But you don't want it to be right here, right? Because this is just normal document flow. These items, I've changed their display to, I'll show you, in the style sheet. I changed all of those divs. I wrote one selector for them all, and I changed their display to inline block, because remember, divs by default are block level elements, so they all display on their own line. This way I got them all to go in one line, okay, by changing their display to inline block. They can still have box model or block level properties like box model properties applied to them, but they display as inline. So that's basically what they're doing. They all have a height and a width of 32 pixels. And then I wrote all these other selectors, which is just changing the color of them. All right, so what I would suggest is using absolute positioning to actually put those on the screen where you want them, okay? And then they won't move, which is really great. So I'm going to target typeface 8, which is that cyan color you can see here. So I'm just actually going to put some absolute positioning on it. So let's do that first. Position, absolute. You might actually have to play around with these offset values to get it into the exact spot that you want, but that's really just going to be a trial and error type thing that you guys are going to have to do. Let's say I know exactly where I want this to go. Let's say I want this to be 200 pixels from the top and 400 pixels from the left. Remember that that's how positioning works. When you specify top, bottom, left, or right, you're saying, I want to move it this many pixels from the top or bottom or left or right. It's not towards or away. It's away from. Okay, so I'm going to say top 200 pixels and left 200 pixels. Or sorry, 400 pixels. Let's just say that I know for a fact that that's a spot on the map where I'm going to have one of these markers. If I save that and go back out to my browser and refresh it, whoops. What's going on? Yeah, no guff. Give me a second. Okay, Sorry. Do you guys remember how absolute positioning works? Anybody want to take a shot at it? I had a brain fart there. So absolute positioning, remember, looks for the first parent element that has the position attribute applied to it. So because that div couldn't find any parent element with positioning applied to it, it just went right up to the HTML tag and positioned it itself right from the very top left corner of the screen, which is right here. So it went 400 this way and 200 that way. So now that I've applied the relative positioning to the body tag, which I'll show you right there, position relative, it can now find the body tag, which is that if you want to kind of pretend that the background is your map as opposed to this dark gray color. Now it's locating itself in relative to the body tag as opposed to the HTML tag. Does that make sense? Yeah. Are you testing in Chrome?
Yeah.
Did you already have position relative on it?
No.
That's weird. I don't know, to be honest with you.
Okay, I thought mine was working too, but it's also because my web browser's shrunk down really small. So
Oh.
is your web screen like half the size?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why, yeah. So it's finding the top left corner of your web browser, and it's locating it from there. All right. Thank you, Sarah. Okay. So if you can imagine that, whoa, what happened there? So I'll have to fix that. Anyways, I'll fix that in a second. We'll come back to it. So now you can kind of place these markers anywhere on your map that you want. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah.
Now, what if we want to have a hover state there and have the pop up somewhere else? Like
What I would do.
what's happening right now?
Okay, so you want the pop-up to happen like
Always in
some
one spot, but like
not relative to the location of the map icon. So I would also use absolute positioning for that too. I would target this. I can't move my mouse, but I would target that container with CSS and say position it absolute like 0 pixels from the right if you always want it on the right hand side. And then that way it's always in the same spot no matter which one of these you hover over. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about placing this too much because I think that's what most people are doing, isn't it? Does anybody have this functionality where you hover over the location marker and the pop-up happens relative to the location of the marker? Eilish, a couple people? Okay. I'll figure out why that's doing that in a little bit.
Mine's not doing that.
Mine's not doing that.
Yours isn't doing that? Is anybody else's acting like this? Everybody that wants it to be relative to the position of the marker. Of course. Okay.
So.
Yeah.
When I adjust my page, then the cyan box comes out of that border.
Yeah, so it's not sticking to the same spot like mine is right now, right?
No,
So what you have to do is you actually have to put position relative on the body tag.
on the bottom.
Yeah, so that absolutely positioned element can find where to position itself from. It's looking for that starting point. Okay, so let's talk about that hover state. So we're just going to do the one state as opposed to a hover and a click. Natalie, did you want to?
Oh, I put position relative, but it still moves when I like adjust the browser. So.
Did you put absolute on the typeface 8?
Yeah.
Did you spell it right?
Yeah.
That happens to me all the time.
Yeah, I didn't check that.
Okay, we're having some really weird issues happening here. And I have a feeling that it's the tool tipster thing that's screwing us up, but I'll take a look at it. We'll keep plugging away. So we're just going to do hover states. We're going to have all our actions happen on hover states. I'm going to show you, I have a feeling that a lot of you have animations happening too. Like you want things to move as opposed to the old kind of standard hover state where you hover over something and something like immediately changes in like the blink of an eye. Okay, I'm going to show you something called CSS Transitions. It's new to CSS 3, and you can actually do pretty cool little animations with it. I'll explain them briefly, and I hope that you guys can figure out how to apply those to your, I'm guessing they're going to be divs that you animate in or out. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to animate this div. Okay, let's pretend that this is my little, you know, the little location markers that you see on like Google Maps and stuff. They're like the little kind of downward pointing eye or upside down water drop. We're going to do something like that. Pretend that it's something like that, and when you hover over it, it gets a little bit bigger. Okay, we're going to animate that right with CSS. First thing I need to do is I want to check out these divs. So all these divs have a width and a height of 32 pixels. Okay, that's what I want to animate. I want to animate the height and the width of these. All right, I want them to change. I want them to be, let's say 40. So what I want to do is I actually want to write a new selector for the typeface 8 because I want to target its hover state. Okay, so I'm going to write a new selector to target typeface 8 in its hover state. So remember your pseudo selector of colon hover. And then you can open and close your curly brackets. Sorry I can't scroll up for the people at the back any farther. I'm at the bottom of my page. Okay, so I want to change the height and the width to 40 pixels. So let's go ahead and we'll just write those really simple. Height, 40 pixels, width, 40 pixels. Okay, so if we save that, and just go back out to our browser, refresh our page, and try that, you can see what happens there is as soon as we hover over that div, it gets bigger, but it's instantaneous, right? Like it's not a very nice transition, it's just a blink, really. So what I want to do is I want to make that kind of a smooth transition over a period of time, so I have to specify that. I'm going to give myself a new line break in that typeface hover. This is how we do this. There's this new rule, CSS3, and it's called transition. Transition. So this is how you do all transitions. First, you have to define the transition rule. Second of all, you have to pick a CSS rule that you want to transition. Okay. In this case, we want to transition the height and the width. Okay. We'll start with the width, I suppose. So I want to just say width. So right now we're saying transition the width. We don't need to specify what we want to transition to because we've already done that here. Okay. Give yourself a space. The next thing you want to define is called the easing effect. And so you can ease this in, which means it starts off slow and it speeds up. You can ease it out, which means it starts fast and slows down. You can ease it in and out. I always find that that's kind of like the most, I don't know, it's the nicest looking one, I think. It's the most realistic. I always usually pick that one. So if you want to just pick ease in out, okay. So we're transitioning the width. It's going to speed up. Sorry, it's going to start off slow, speed up. When it gets to halfway, it's going to slow back down again. It's almost like driving a car. You start at 0, you speed up, get to a certain point, and then you start slowing down again. And then we have to pick the length of time that we want that transition to happen over. Okay. Let's try half a second. So if you write 0.5s, that's half a second. You can pick any period of time that you want. Just make sure that you put s after it for seconds. And then hit that, hit the semicolon. So before you test that, there's a couple other things we have to do. I don't think I've talked about this yet. Are you guys familiar with vendor prefixes? Vendor prefixes are really easy. They can be confusing, but they're actually really easy. So a lot of the browsers, because CSS3 is still pretty new, a lot of browsers haven't really fully adopted a lot of the transition properties. So you need to actually specify that you're writing a CSS rule specifically for a certain browser. Because all the different browsers use different rendering engines in order to make your websites work. And it's really easy to do. All I want you to do is just copy this line of code, okay, and then paste it 3 more times. 1, 2, 3. So there's 3 vendor prefixes. it's always recommended that you leave the original rule. Okay, really good web browsers like Chrome are going to run this one. Okay, but Firefox, Opera, Safari, and even Internet Explorer are going to look for other ones. Actually, Internet Explorer doesn't even have its own vendor prefix. Okay, so those vendor prefixes are written like this. So you start with a dash, and they pop up right there. Nobody ever uses the MS one, that's Microsoft. The first one is, I like to put WebKit first. So WebKit is the rendering agent for Safari. Click down to the next line right before transition, and then hit your dash again. And then your next one is going to be MOZ, which is Mozilla. So that's your web rendering engine for Firefox. And the last one is the O, which is Opera. Okay, so what those three rules are doing is they're just speaking specifically to browsers, to the different browsers, so that they actually get the transition rule to work. And now that I've done all that, I'm going to copy those 4 lines. Okay, give myself a line break right below it, and then paste them. So I've got these rules written twice. I'm just going to change on that last paste that I just did. I'm going to change the width to height.
Didn't work. It killed the width one.
It killed the width one.
It only does like the height.
Mine didn't.
Boo.
Yours does both.
Oh, mine does both. But still,
Oh, not at the same time.
yeah, it's not pretty.
Not at the same time, they're working at different times.
It does width.
Are you serious?
Those-
Yeah.
Wow, this is like the worst demo I've ever done. Give me a second. I had it working this morning.
Oh, I got it. Just take out width, so it's only ease in out about 5 seconds.
You
That
took
is
width
neither-
out?
Neither height or width when it works.
If you do that, I wonder if you can take out height completely
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
what I did.
Is that working? Is anyone using a browser not Chrome? What are you using, Will?
Firefox.
Using Firefox? If you take out everything and just leave transition ease in out, does that work? You're using Internet Explorer and that doesn't work? This is the beauty of web browsers. It is working? Hey,
Yeah, that works now.
thanks, Sebastian. Yeah. Pardon? Of the selector?
Yeah.
It's typeface 8 and then a colon hover because we're using our pseudo selector to select the hover state.
Is there a way to make it like from all sides? Not just like one corner.
If you wanted to do it from all sides, you would also have to transition the location
Oh, okay.
half of the distance of the size of the transition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
is anyone listening? Because there's like a lot of talking going on, and this is like our last project, and I'd like to do well.
Sorry, what did you say?
I said, is anyone listening? Because we're trying to have a class. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Sebastian just asked if we wanted to have it kind of expand from all sides as opposed to going to the right and down. There's no actual transition for that. The only way to kind of achieve that is at the same time as the transition is happening to the right and down, you actually also move the location of the center of that box up and to the left, half the distance of the size of the transition. Hopefully that makes some sense. Did that make sense to everybody?
Can you show us?
Yeah, that's gonna take forever.
Would it take forever?
I think so.
I can try it really fast, and then if it works, you guys can just type it down. Do you want to do that? Okay. So if this is usually, where's the location of this? 200 and 400. So I want transition top 196. God. Jeez. How are we gonna do this? I'll look into that one.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
I was just asking if it was an easy one.
Pretend I never said that. One thing that I notice though is as soon as it transitions in, but it doesn't transition out. Okay, so we actually have to add the transition to the original size as well in order so that when the hover state is disengaged, that it transitions back to the regular CSS rule. Okay, so let's find. I don't want to add that rule to all of my different selectors. Like I don't want to do it to this one and then add it to this one. I'm just going to scroll up to this really long selector right here. And I'm just going to write this rule once. So I'll say transition, ease in out, 0.5s. So that's saying, okay, now when you go from 40 pixels back to 32, we'll just transition it back to that size.
How that works. You can like cut it off.
I did see some.
Yeah, LDEF.
Hi. Can't not look.
Move it up to this one.
Can you change the color? Yeah, so if you want to put a new background color on it when you hover over it, that's what I was thinking. Like even if you wanted to use an image, like say you use that little location marker or map marker, and you substituted in another image on the hover state, and then use the transition to animate the background rule, you could do that if you wanted. I'll just write that in really quick. I'll just do like red or something.
That transition is supposed to do all of them?
It's only doing the one because we just wrote the hover state for typeface 8. You can apply all this stuff to all of these hover states if you want. It would literally just be copying this entire rule and putting, hover behind them all. And then that way you can target all the hover states so that they all act the same way. I'm just doing one at a time for making it easy. Yep.
What if you're using like a font awesome icon for like map markers? Can you put transitions on those too? Or?
Yeah, so to make transitions for font awesome icons, just change font size. So your font size is, your standard size, say 25 pixels, and then you want it to grow to 40 pixels, just, change font size. Yep.
And how do you change the shape of the hover icon?
Change the shape of,
Instead of having
Yeah,
to be
all those stripes.
change the shape of this?
Yeah.
What kind of a shape do you want?
I have like a weird triangle.
I have a circle.
Like it's an
You have a
arrow,
circle?
But it's an arrow, but then it has like a stop sign.
Oh, it's like a pentagram or a,
We were supposed to do this in November. Things as well.
okay.
Like when I just save it as an image, then use that as.
You could, yeah, if you wanted to, as the background for that div. Yeah, that would be okay. Yeah, that'll save you from writing a lot of CSS. You have a circle?
Yeah, I have a circle.
You guys have circles?
Well, I have one.
I'm a little guy. Have a red silver coat.
Oh, right. So your little guy, is he a icon that you made yourself?
Yes. I do a PNG and just have him like appear.
Yeah, if you want to animate the background to, or just have him appear, like fade in and out, maybe. You could animate the opacity rule. There's the opacity. You could set the opacity to 0, and then when it's in that hover state, you animate the opacity up to 100% or 1. It actually looks like this. So say your regular state is opacity 0, and then you animate it to, I hope this works, opacity 1. And so anywhere in between is like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. So 1 is full opacity and 0 is completely transparent. That's okay. Let me just try that to make sure it works. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, you wanted to know how to round your corners and make circles.
Yes.
To make circles, this is fun. Stump the teacher day. Okay, we want to make these circles as opposed to squares.
Yeah.
I'm going to use a border radius, okay? So border radius, you can actually specify a pixel amount, an M amount. You can actually also do percentages. So if you use percentages, you can say a radius of 50%. And what that does is that takes half the height and half the width, and it rounds the corner that much. And so if you think about it, that should round all the corners. And where'd it go? There it is.
How does that work?
We're getting a lot of effects happening here. I would recommend not doing this many, but
Okay, so
Yeah, can you make that a quick state?
we could, but I have to get into the whole JavaScript thing. You guys don't want to do that, right?
Maybe.
Maybe? Who who wants to know how to do a second state now that we've actually started working?
Sure.
Yeah?
Doesn't matter.
What, the circle?
Okay. It's going to be a really long recording, and I probably won't be able to upload it today. It's going to take a while. So I'll talk about how to so that's your hover state, and now we want to add a click state. And Emily, if I miss anything, make sure that you chime in. Okay? Emily and I did this on Tuesday. And it worked out really cool. Did you get your transitions to work? Headphones, eh? Did you get your transitions to work? Never mind.
Everything works.
Okay. You what?
I sent you it on email.
Oh, I haven't checked my email all week.
So will you like maybe try and have this up before the weekend?
Yeah, I'm gonna do it tomorrow. All right. So if you are really ambitious and you want to have a click state, this is how you do it. Where do I start? So let me start with explaining what we're going to do, and then we'll actually do it. What we need to do is we actually need to do some dynamic loading of CSS styles. Okay, so we can use the hover state in CSS, which is fine. Okay, we don't need to. We did it on Tuesday with the hover state in JavaScript, but we've done it in CSS now. Let's do a click state with JavaScript. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to write a function that targets something specific on our page, like we've done there, and then we're going to actually target something inside of that and either add or remove classes, and those classes are actually going to change the way that things look and slide around. Okay? I was not ready for this. I'm winging it. I'm going to warn you right now. Okay? So the first thing I need to do is I need to actually write a function. Okay? I don't want to write it there. I'm just going to go right here.
By the
Yeah, but this is actually inside of the document ready function. So that's what I want, right? Like when the document is ready, I want this this other function to start working.
Okay. So I can write it anywhere you want.
Not anywhere you want. Now you got me thinking, Jennifer. We'll let her rip, and if it doesn't work, we'll fix it. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is write my $sign. We're going to have syntax errors this entire time, but whatever. Open up a parentheses, open up a quote. And now I need to target something that I want to animate. So I want to target, let's say, typeface 8. So I'll write $, typeface 8, pops up my code hinting, which is great. Close your quote, close your parentheses. And now what you do is you actually add that event handler. So on an event, this thing happens. Well, what event? Well, it's on click. So you type a period to start your event handler, and then click. Dot click. So you're saying when there's a click on this thing, we're going to run this function. And we haven't defined the function yet. Okay? So open a parentheses. Function. Open and close another parentheses. The syntax for JavaScript is really weird. I don't like it. Open a curly bracket. And give yourself a line break. Actually, before we do that, we should close all our curly brackets and stuff. So give yourself another line break. And then close your curly bracket, close your parentheses, and then semicolon to end your function. In the line above it, yep. A syntax error? Are you inside the document ready function? Did you put double quotes or did you put single quotes? I'll have to come see it, Elda, in order to see exactly what it is. Okay, so what we're saying here is when there's a click event on this, we're actually going to do whatever's in this function. Okay, what is in this function? Well, we need another $sign. That basically, the $sign is basically means do this thing. It worked? Okay. Same syntax. Open your parentheses. Open your quote. We want to target. This really depends on how you've structured your document. Like, what do you want to target? Do you want to target, typeface 8? We could target that. Let's do that. Typeface 8. Close your quote. Close your parentheses. And the event that we're going to attach to this is called, and this is a jQuery event. It's called add class. So you put a dot, and it's actually right there. Add class. Whoa. Yep. Don't click on that because that just added a whole bunch of crap that I didn't want. Just type it in, add class. Pardon? Sorry, uppercase C on class. It is case sensitive. That's the one thing about JavaScript is it's really case sensitive. And then open your parentheses, type your colon, or not colon, your quote. And then this is where you would actually put a class name. So what this is doing is I'm just going to put like your class name. Not the name of the, like it's not Desi292. Okay? It's whatever class you specify. So what this is doing is it's saying when there's a click event on typeface 8, okay, target typeface 8 and then add this specific class to it. And then what you can do is in your CSS you can go write certain styles for a class and apply it and it will apply to typeface 8. I suppose I should probably give that a shot. So in my style sheet, I'm going to write a new class. Here's a worthy note. In your source code, you do not need to put the dot right there to specify that it is a class. The add class already knows that there's going to be a dot in front of this. Okay, you just need to actually put the name. But in your CSS, you need to put that dot. Okay, your class name. What property do you want to change? We'll change the width and the height. Width to 50 pixels. Height 50 pixels. Moment of truth. You guys ready? So when I hover over it, I should get a transition that makes it 40 pixels high, 40 pixels wide, background red. Took the opacity off. I made the rounded corners are still there, and I hope, fingers are crossed, that when I click, it makes it 50 and 50. Has anybody tried it yet? Oh, it broke. All that for nothing. Give me a second. Something bad is happening. This project is really hard because everybody's is really different, and it's hard to show everybody everything they need to know.
Great way it is and just call it quits.
Emily, are you noticing anything that I'm missing?
I'm not gonna look at it.
Never mind. Okay.
You need my code?
No, I've got it. What am I missing? I'm just trying stuff right now. Give me a sec.
My purposing is for this slide, but after position fixed, transitions, talking.
Yeah, I just don't think that these are applying at all.
And you're doing the click. There's a space after click.
That can't be it. Please tell me that's not it.
And there's a space after the open and close brackets. Nope, not that one. That one.
Yeah. Oh my god. Oh my god. No, I can't. Son of a bee sting. Okay, I'm gonna fix this too.
These are different classes. For mine.
Yeah, I've got a class that should be applied to.
No, but like these are
I
different
know,
on mine.
I know, but you should still be able to target this when this is clicked on, because it doesn't necessarily need to be inside.